and welcome to our season review of the 2019 Lions season. I'm Tori Petry alongside Twentyman and Mike O'Hara here in Allen Park. Guys, we do this every year. We're going to look back at everything that happened over the course of the season. We'll split it up into a few different videos, but let's start here today on offense. Obviously, a lot to review on offense this season, considering the Lions played with 3 different quarterbacks this year.
Well, to me, it starts with what they were with Matthew Stafford and what they were without him. And I could bore you with the statistics right now, and I probably will later.
He's gonna.
But not the same team. Absolutely not the same team in any way,
Sure.
shape, or form. I think Matthew Stafford showed his value to this team. I think he's the most valuable athlete to any team in the state of Michigan.
And I think now that we've hit the off season, now it comes into question what that quarterback room will look like next year. You mentioned the 2 backups. Jeff Driscoll came in when Matthew Stafford hurt that back in Week 9, who was 0-3. He did some good things, but ultimately quarterbacks are, judged on wins and losses. He was 0-3. He hurts the hamstring in Washington. David Blau comes in. David Blau, again, does some good things, but he's 0-5. So without Matthew Stafford this year, that's 0-8. And you just look at other teams and what they did. I think the best example is probably New Orleans with Teddy Bridgewater. That team went, got themselves an established veteran backup. I think, it'll be interesting to see what the Lions do, whether that's draft, a guy to develop that can possibly play early, or if they'll take that route, go get some established guy that's played, that's a free agent. I think they got to do something, and I think they will do something. It's just yet to be determined what that is.
And one thing about it, if it's free agency, it costs you money. If it's a draft, it costs you probably a 3rd-round draft pick if you want to get somebody who you think who might be the quality to be an heir apparent, but Matthew Stafford's going to be the quarterback for a long time.
Sure.
And I think the other thing, the most important thing that's happened in this offseason starting Monday, the day after the game, is that John Matthew Stafford said, "I'll be ready for the offseason program." I had some doubt in my mind. He, to me, ended all that doubt. Detroit Lions are safe with their starting quarterback.
Well, and that's good because they were playing. This was an offense that was humming along with Matthew Stafford at quarterback.
Yeah.
Now, it didn't result in the wins and losses, and that's for other mitigating factors that we'll talk about in other videos. But 3-4-1. But this was, I think, top 5 passing offense. They were moving the ball. He was playing at a Pro Bowl, potentially MVP type level. I think it was 19 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. His yards per attempt, 8.6, the highest of his career. He led the league in 20-yard pass completions at 41. So, I mean, it was humming along. And so I think when you look into this offseason and going into year 2 under Darrell Bevell, you've got to like what you have with Matthew Stafford at quarterback. And now you're going to get into some of the nitty-gritty, some of the details of this offense. It isn't going to be an offseason where they're trying to learn it and implement it. Now they're trying to perfect it. And so you have to be excited a little bit about Matthew Stafford coming back and his ability to be in that offense.
And if I'd just like to add one thing to those great stats here, is that he was dialed in when he was hurt. His last 3 games, he averaged 73% completions, 371 yards per game, and 10 touchdown passes. He was on his way to maybe 5,400, 5,500 yards, right up their historic yardage performance, cut short by the injury.
Tim, you brought up Darrell Bevell. We haven't talked about him yet. He took over this offense this offseason. What did you think of the offense he implemented? We talked a lot last offseason about how balance was what they were going for and how he would be working with Matthew Stafford. What did you think of what Darrell Bevell was able to do this year?
Well, I liked what he did with the running game early on. There wasn't a lot of success early on, but he stuck with it. And I think that was the big thing where maybe some guys say, look, it's not working. You're like, we're not getting the yards per carry that we want. Let's go away. Let's throw the ball. And then now defensive ends, defensive line can pin their ears back. I think the one thing I really liked about Bevell was he stayed consistent all the way through. So I think that's one of the things I really liked about Darrell Bevell. And then we saw at the end of the year that run game really started to go under Kerryon Johnson and Bo Scarborough. But the one thing about Darrell Bevell is he was consistent. He had a plan, and he stuck with it all year long. He deserves a lot of credit for that.
And I also think, Tim and Tori, that he had some wrinkles in it. He didn't care who played quarterback, and it was Matthew Stafford with the flea flicker against Green Bay, a game they lost 23-22. It was the long pass to Kenny Galladay when David Blau's second throw as a quarterback. And then the last game of the season, touchdown pass to David Blau. So he had something ready to go no matter who his personnel was. And he talked about the running game, but I think despite all the injuries, I think you saw development on the offensive line. And the 3-guard rotation, I don't know if it was a stroke of genius or if they did it just because they weren't sure, but I think it worked out. And I think as the season went on, that versatility up front, I think, did that team well.
Well, briefly here, let's run through the different position groups on offense. We've talked about the quarterback position. We've talked about the offensive coordinator. Mike, you touched on that offensive line and the rotation that they had this year. What did you think of how the offensive line play turned out at the end of the season? Obviously, they had some injuries of their own.
Well, absolutely, they went downfield longer, so you got to hold your blocks longer and all that. But I thought they played pretty well. I thought Joe Dahl at left guard till he got hurt late in the season was a good move. Frank Ragnow from left guard to center. You're looking at the next 10-time Pro Bowl center, maybe 11.
He's really good.
He is really
good. And I thought it was a little bit of a slight for him not even to be considered in the Pro Bowl mix, because I think he played that well. I think the big question mark with the offensive line heading into the offseason, Graham Glasgow's a free agent. He gives you some versatility. He can play left guard, right guard. We know he's played center as well. He won't have to do that moving forward. But where does he end up? Do the Lions make him a contract offer? Where does that fall in line with free agency? Guards have been getting paid a lot of money here the last couple of years in free agency, and so it'll be interesting to see what Graham Glasgow.
Well, yeah, it'll come down to market value with him, but I think the big issue is not do they have a good candidate at right guard? They do. To me, it's right tackle, and is it Rick Wagner coming back, or is it Terrell Crosby? Who knows? I think that's in my mind wide open.
Let's move on to the tight end position, something the Lions really invested in this offseason, bringing in a free agent, bringing in a first-round draft pick in T.J. Hawkinson. Obviously, T.J. wasn't able to finish out this season, and we'll talk more about rookies later on. But what did you think of the play that the Lions got out of their tight end group this year?
Well, obviously started great in the first game against Arizona with TJ with, 6 catches for 130 yards and a touchdown. He kind of flattened out after that. He had some good moments, some bad moments, and some average moments. I was a little disappointed in how the depth played out, though. Logan Thomas, to me, was signed to be the third tight end. I think he really was the second tight end in terms of production. And Jesse James, no relation to Doc Holliday on that crew, but it's an inside joke here, guys. But Jesse James, I was really disappointed he wasn't a 30, 35 catch guy. Bob Quinn said at his presser, they've got to get more out of Jesse James, and we'll see if they do, and we'll see if they can.
I agree 100% on your evaluation of Jesse James. I think with TJ, and I've written this before, and I've talked to people around the league, and they always say the tight end position outside of quarterback is the hardest for rookies to come in and learn, because you're learning 3 different positions. You have to understand the blocking schemes. You have to understand all the protections. It is just a lot to put on a rookie's plate. And Mike talked about the terrific debut he had, and then you level out a little bit. And I think if you look around the league, you look at the George Kittles, you go look at some of the great tight ends in this league right now. Go look at their rookie years. Go see what they did production-wise their rookie years, and I think you'll be a little bit surprised. That's kind of on par with what TJ did this year. Now, he's obviously got to do some things better. I think he's got to develop and get better blocking-wise and stuff like that. But I think TJ Hawkinson's going to be a really good player for a long time. I don't think you guys need to be worried out there. I think he's a really, really good player. He built a strong foundation in his first year. Not
much to review when it comes to the wide receiver position because that was really one of the strengths of this offense this year. Marvin Jones Jr. and Kenny Golladay, fantastic years for both of them. Unfortunately for Marvin Jones Jr., it ended in injury, but really good years for both those guys.
Well, to me, it was sort of like the Skins game for Kenny Golladay, where you got to validate after you make a birdie. Well, he validated his second year. He had a 1,000-yard season, and then came back and did even better, and then had the 11 touchdown catches to lead the league in touchdown catches. Look, I don't know if we're looking at a future superstar, but we're looking at a future #1 wide receiver.
Yeah, and Marvin Jones heads into his last year, but he was terrific. Obviously couldn't finish the year, but 9 touchdowns with him. That's a great 1-2 duo, and I'd say Danny Amendola had a terrific year as well. Yeah,
his yards per catch were up, and I think he's one of those guys who can fit in, whether it's Tom Brady's his quarterback or David Blau. He's a presence. I'd bring him back in a minute. Now, look, I'm not negotiating contracts, and it's not my money, but Danny, I'll bring you back.
And finally, let's touch on that run game, the running backs that the Lions had back there this year. A lot of up and down with the run game considering the injuries. Kerryon Johnson spent much of the season on IR, was able to return for those final 2 games of the year. In the meantime, the Lions picked up Bo Scarborough, who came in and really did some good things for the Lions, showed some strong play, and then of course Ty Johnson was in the mix as well. I think at the very end of the year we kind of saw what this backfield could look like with these 3 different guys with different skill sets.
Well, I liked Bo, and I like Bo, period, but I just, I talked to somebody in Dallas where he was drafted, and they said they made a big mistake not keeping him. He would have helped that team. Now look, he's behind Zeke Elliott. He wasn't going to get a lot of carries, but he'd give you quality when he's in the game, and I thought he did that with the Lions. I really did. I thought right from the beginning to his last carry, I think he's going to be a good second or third back for the Lions, depending on what, on the situation.
Sure. And Kerryon took a lot of grief, trying to come back, and the Lions made it his decision. And look, he said, I didn't want to finish the year on IR. I wanted to come back and prove something.
Can you blame him?
You can't blame him.
He wants to play football.
What's wrong with that? That's what he gets paid to do. I thought he had a great line. He said, look, if I don't play, then my fans might become somebody else's fans. Yeah. And so, look, you've got to get back there and play. And I think the important thing about the last 2 games was it showed what that duo could potentially be. And I think maybe if he didn't come back, you've got a lot of questions heading into the offseason. Where does Kerryon fit in with Bo? How do the two styles mesh together? Well, the last 2 games, both guys averaged over 4 yards per carry. That run game was really, really good. And so, yeah, I think Kerryon coming back, I think answered a few questions about what you have in that running back room. Now maybe you head into this offseason thinking, oh, maybe we don't really have to, spend a ton of resources because we like our number 1, our number 2. Now, you always want to add young running backs, don't get me wrong, but I think a number 1 and a number 2 in Kerryon Johnson, Bo Scarborough, you could do a lot worse than that.
All right, guys, good stuff on the Lions offense in 2019. Obviously, we are looking forward to see what happens in 2020 in that second year under Darrell Bevell. Thanks so much for tuning in to the offense version of Season in Review. We will have more for you in the coming weeks. From Xfinity Studio, I'm Tori Petry.